Most people think Ethereum had its moment this cycle. The hype is gone, the all-time high was kinda disappointing, and a lot of people are starting to ask the same question: is Ethereum dead? But what if I told you that that all-time high wasn't the end of the story? What if it was actually a setup? What if Ethereum didn't fail this cycle but simply ran out of time? Because when you zoom out, and I mean really zoom out, Ethereum might be entering one of the most important accumulation phases we have seen in years. A phase that most people get bored in, a phase where sentiment dies, a phase where patience is rewarded. And if history rhymes as it usually does, the decisions made in 2026 can be defining for who really wins in the next bull market. So in this video I want to go through what the logarithmic regression band is telling us about Ethereum in 2026, why the next cycle could have much better conditions than this one, and what I think happens short term even if the price continues to disappoint. This is not financial advice, this is just my opinion. So let's get into it. I recently made a video breaking down what I think is going to happen in 2026 for Bitcoin, but it felt incomplete not to do the same for Ethereum, especially given how underwhelming Ethereum has felt this cycle. So in this video we're going to focus on Ethereum 2026 and beyond that. This is not a hype video telling you Ethereum is going to go to 20k next week. This is a probability based outlook for the long term. The first thing I want to talk about is the logarithmic regression band. If you are not familiar with it, a regression band shows the price relative to its long-term growth. Instead of using a normal price scale, it uses a log scale, which accounts for exponential growth over time. So on the charts we're at a lower and a higher band, which historically highlights when Ethereum is extremely overvalued or extremely undervalued, or even fair valued. This tool is not meant for short-term trading, it's meant to answer one question: are we early, late, or somewhere in between? And when you look at Ethereum through this lens, things start to get interesting. Right now Ethereum is sitting just above the top of the regression band. Back in 2025 we briefly entered this band before pushing into new all-time highs, but that all-time high was shockingly weak compared to what most people were expecting, and that's the key point. In previous cycles like 2016 and especially 2021, Ethereum spent a lot of time in this regression band before rallying into new all-time highs. But this cycle, we didn't nearly spend as much time as we did the other times. We didn't build up energy, we didn't spend time compressing volatility, we just slightly pushed higher than the previous all-time high and then we stalled out. And I think that's why it feels so disappointing for Ethereum holders. Because Ethereum didn't spend enough time in the regression band back in 2025. I think there's a very real chance that 2026 becomes that missing consolidation year, instead of blowing off to the upside and boring people to death. This doesn't mean Ethereum is dead. It means Ethereum might be resetting expectations, and that's usually when opportunity quietly forms. Now obviously no two cycles are identical, but if we are looking for historical similarities, 2019 is the closest structure. So let's run that comparison. After the 2018 peak, Ethereum didn't crash straight down forever. Instead, it entered a slow bleed. Lower highs, lower lows, grinding price action. If Ethereum follows a similar path here, that could put price somewhere around $2,100. And I want to be very clear about this. That would not be a failure. That would be a high probability accumulation zone. Again, not financial advice, just my opinion, but historically, these levels are where long-term positions makes the most sense. Now let's talk about the part that everyone actually cares about. If Ethereum spends 2026 consolidating in the regression band and the next cycle plays out normally, then the upside targets shift dramatically. If we extend the upper regression band forward, just like we have done in previous cycles, Ethereum could realistically target $15,000 or higher in the next major bull market. That doesn't mean it's gonna happen overnight, and it doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but structurally, that's where the math points. And that's why the boring years matters more than the exciting ones. Another major factor here is the macro conditions. This cycle was fought against aggressive rate hikes, QT, tight financial conditions. The next cycle likely is gonna look a bit different. By then we could have lower interest rates, a new Fed chair, QT behind us with QE further along. These conditions are extremely supportive of risk assets, including Ethereum and crypto as a whole. So one way I track these rate cuts expectations is Polymarket. Yes, it's a betting platform, and that's why it is extremely useful. People are forced to put money behind their beliefs. Right now, the odds of getting 0 rate cuts this year are sitting around 3%, with the remaining probability favoring 1 or more cuts. That of course doesn't mean it's guaranteed. These numbers can change, but it tells us what the markets are currently expecting to happen. And historically, Polymarket has been extremely accurate when it comes to calling these rate cuts. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the short term, even though it is really hard to call, and this is where things can get messy. I'm not great at short term predictions, and I don't want to pretend to be, but I do think Ethereum mainly follows what Bitcoin does. So basically, if Bitcoin goes up or down, Ethereum is likely gonna follow that same move. But looking at moving averages and key zones, I think Ethereum could still see a small relief rally into the expensive zone. However, I expect a rejection near the bull market support band. Personally, I think it's unlikely we reclaim and hold above that level, though of course anything is always possible. My base case is a rejection followed by a slow bleed down. Not a crash, but more of a slow bleed. I'll say the same thing for Ethereum as I said for Bitcoin here in 2026. This looks like a patience year. These mid-cycle years are boring. The boring runs is where real wealth is built, not where it's celebrated. If you zoom out and look at past cycles, these times are the best opportunities to get a long-term position. Just imagine buying at these previous lows. You'll still be in profit today, and you could already start to take profits while holding a long-term position. So that's basically my outlook for Ethereum here in 2026. And remember, money isn't made when everyone is watching. It is made when it's boring. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what your prediction is for 2026. I love to hear from you guys. I read all the comments and reply, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Peace.